a New York landmark, a movie icon, a filmmaker whose heart has never strayed too far from the heart of the city. This artist, more than anyone else, has created a vision of New York that the world has joyously shared.
You were born here in 1935. The Empire State Building had just been built 4 years prior. You grew up deep in Brooklyn, south of Flatbush, on the upper floor of a house with a red door. You were funny. When you got older, you were hired to write jokes in newspapers. You changed your name. You wrote for a TV series, for The New Yorker, for an audience at a late-night comedy club. The venues grew larger. You performed at The Tonight Show, a string of shows on Broadway. And then, you became a filmmaker. You wrote and directed a few films. Some are good.
Fielding Mellish, the president of San Marcos, goes on trial tomorrow for fraud, inciting to riot, conspiracy to overthrow the government, and using the word thighs in mixed company.
One is even great.
Yeah, I sort of dabble around, you know.
The films nominated for the Academy Award this year are...
You win awards, accolades, fame. You make another film, one that solidifies you. You name it after the place you love most, Manhattan. In it, your character says this to his lover.
I mean, you're God's answer to Job. You know, you would have ended all argument between them. I mean, he would have pointed to you and said, you know, I do a lot of terrible things, but I can also make one of these, you know?
It's quite beautiful, your writing. You get married and divorced and married again. You have a relationship with your soon-to-be ex-wife's adopted daughter. She was 22 at the time. You were 56. Then comes the moment where your story splits, fractures, becomes two. This is the first. When you were 56, you drove up to Connecticut to visit your adopted daughter. Her name is Dylan. She was 7 at the time. You took her upstairs into the attic and instructed her to lie on her stomach and play with her brother's train. And then, as you stood in the doorway, you sexually assaulted her. This is the second. When you were 56, none of this happens. You drove up to Connecticut, saw the children, and drove home. It was a non-event, you say. A non-event. Dylan says it happened. You say it did not. Neither story changes for the next 26 years. You continue on. You write, you act, you direct, you create. It's like your story had never split at all. Life in Manhattan continues on as it always had. And then, 25 years later, another rupture. And everything is brought back. Your character slept with a 17-year-old in this film, in Manhattan. Those beautiful words about being God's gift were said to a girl still in high school. Your story has broken, fractured into a horde of facets too many for me to understand. You are a pervert. You are brilliant. You are a manipulator. You are an auteur. You are innocent. You are guilty. How do we put these stories together? How do we mend your facets into one? Do we erase you? Bury the art? Bury what happened? Do we cry for your innocence, for a man never convicted? Do we spare the art and sentence the artist? J.D. Salinger dated a 14-year-old girl when he was 30. Ernest Hemingway was an alcoholic with a string of broken marriages. Picasso had an affair with an underage girl. Caravaggio killed a man in a duel. The hands of artists are capable of great and terrible things. You are no exception. But you are not excused either. There's a scene at the end of Manhattan. A fight in a classroom. Your character stands next to a skeleton. You say,
You know, it's very important to have some kind of personal integrity. You know, I'll be hanging in a classroom one day, and I want to make sure when I thin out that I'm well thought of.
It makes me wonder, how will you be thought of, Woody?